Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hegemony Revealed. We are all three here. It's been a minute. Hey, thank
I
you.
know.
It's so good to
Hi.
Hey.
see the both of all three of us together again. We've had scheduling issues here and there, and so it's good that we're all here together again. And we were so busy chatty on the back end of the live. They started giving us warnings saying, "Oh, you better go on, or you're gonna have to start a new live." So I said, "Let's go, let's go." Anyways, welcome. So, Garry, can you share what you were just saying about January 16th? I love that.
Sure. Yeah, hello everyone. This is number 19. This is the 19th time, a combination of the three of us or two of us, with guests, without guests. But it was January the 16th. A bit of extra context for anybody that's watching this live or watching back. So Trina and I first met because I went randomly live, probably about November last year, 2022. Doing something called Decolonizing Our Minds Through Generative Listening, which is just a little game I made up with 2 packs of cards. Trina went, "Hey, I like the look of that. Let's do it." We connected. Then Sahana and Trina connected. And then before we knew it, Trina had this amazing idea of, why don't the three of us come together to explore this hegemony thing that seems to be collapsing all around us? I was like, hey, why not? So in less than 12 months, people, in fact, it's closer to 11 months than it is 12 months since we first went live. And oh my freaking goodness. I was just saying to Trina, Sahana, when we jumped on, somehow this show, this exploration together, it feels a little bit like a live journal at this really unique time in our evolution stroke collapse. So that's the seed I would like maybe to offer into the space as we go exploring today.
Yep. All right. Yeah. And I love that because I think that we're living out loud.
Oh, yeah.
And fearlessly out loud on top of that, which is kind of rare, you know. A lot of hegemony makes us want to hide who we are. And you know, there was a ex-CIA agent said the reason why he could figure people out due to the fact that he knew there was a public version of self, there was a private, and then there was a secret. And how he would infiltrate or try to undermine or understand a target was to try to figure out all three of those. And my thought was, well, darn, I got it all out here. I don't have much secrets. I think I overshare. And I think that's where we need to all get collectively and not have this fear around revealing who we are to each other because we have more in common than we don't. So that's how I'll start it out. That's how I'll start it out. And you, Sahana? Oh, Sahana, are you frozen? Sahana's frozen. Hello? Okay. Garry?
Sahana will be back, I'm sure. No, I think we were just having a chat right before we went live around this topic of vulnerability, which is, you know, quite new, I would say, in Western spheres, really, as a dialogue, as a conversation, as something really to be dived deep into, and not just at the surface level. And I think that for me, this collective vulnerability, this individual vulnerability, yeah. So we've got it individually, we have it collectively. And I think what I'm really curious about, having gone through my own journey, right, the last 9-10 years of this, of truly connecting head, heart, gut, of truly not running away from the shadows whilst trying to create light on the other side, you know? And I think this vulnerability topic is really screaming at all of us right now from a point of connectedness, i.e., how do we reconnect to ourselves, one another, and to the systems that sustain us through being more vulnerable, through showing more of our true selves, through allowing even a bit of that secret to be seen by people on occasion, and not just the public persona. So I think it's a time of reckoning for me. It's a time of, yeah, and we are the leaders that we're looking for, right? Every single one of us. It's not that big influencer. It's not the person that has $1 million. It's literally that person in the mirror. If you'll just dare to look in the mirror. Sahana, welcome back.
Yeah.
Would love your thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was just meant to make. And thank you, Garry and Trina, for what you have shared, because it is so true that hegemony wants us to remain as atomized individuals, insecure, scared, and alone. That's in the hegemony's interest, of course. And sharing our vulnerability, Garry and Trina, is perhaps the most courageous thing we can do. And which is why repeatedly I've seen that when when anyone, any individual is genuinely vulnerable, they are authentic, they come with their wholeness, and they do not have, like Trina was saying, they do not have a secret persona that they hide behind.
Mm.
They reveal they are who they are. It's like literally, you see what you get when a human is vulnerable and authentic. And that's again not in hegemony's interest. Because when we are open to each other, empathic and caring and welcoming and inclusive, then all the facades and delusions vanish, right? Boom, it's gone. It's gone. And the propaganda and the facade and the misinformations are what hold hegemony up. And if we are authentic with each other, if we tell each other exactly what we see and feel and what, accept what is happening, accept our light and our shadows, rejoice and accept, then it's not going to work. Then we are going to be strong communities of people, not isolated individuals. And strong communities of people will not let a handful of old men run the
Mhm.
show for very long.
Mhm. Yes, beautiful, Shauna, and so true. And what popped in my head was the the early '80s, maybe even the '70s, and the propensity and desire for media outlets to create tabloids, to create gossip, to create this really low vibrational energy to go, aha, we caught you, aha, you're this or that. And to the point where vulnerability went in because there was so much public scrutiny, and especially those British tabloids. Oh my goodness, they are cutthroat. I love that Prince Harry just won his lawsuit against. Yeah,
Big news.
I was applauding. I was applauding because you can just see how the media and
Not
the
sure if it is my internet. I'm just going to log.
okay, the media, hegemonic media's uh, tool of media and how media is used to create all of this feeling of fear and
Mhm.
othering, you know? And so, how can vulnerability, which is a superpower, because it leads to all of these things that need to happen, that's happening right now as we see the West secrets being revealed,
Yeah,
okay? And everybody globally coming together saying no more. This
yeah,
has got to, it is it's heartbreaking that it's taken
yeah.
this horrible genocide to create this connectivity, but it is the dark and the light coming together to do what it's supposed to do. And so I always tell people that, we are all such energetic beings And you see the power of that energy if we are collectively focused on the same thing. And so don't feel I feel so powerless. Are you kidding me? Stop. That's exactly what they want. You're not powerless. You know? You can affect a room with your joy, with your light by just walking into it. And we forget that. So imagine if we take all of that together. First, reconnect back to self, like Garry said, because that is the most important part. I tell my very religious client that, you know, you're trying to connect to something outside of yourself, okay? And if you have this belief system that you are one with a God, how can you connect? How can He hear your prayers if you're not connected to yourself? How? That line is broken, the antenna is down. So if you want to connect with a higher source, whether you call it God, universal, pluriversal energies, you need to be in this universe completely connected to your mind, body, and spirit. That's our power. That's our
Yeah,
power. Mhm. So,
beautiful, Trina. And
mhm,
what you said, about us being powerful energies, beings of light, and the hegemony, the, and currently it is the West. It could be anyone actually, but right now, and for the last 500 years, it has been the
mhm,
handful of nations from the West. They are scared even of two young 20-year-olds with a camera recording what is
mhm,
happening.
mhm,
Imagine their immense power, their intelligent drones, their quadrocopters, and so much of military industrial complex, scared of 20-year-olds, half starving people, individuals with a camera recording what is happening, that they have to indiscriminately bomb them to death.
mhm.
So imagine the power of a voice. Imagine the power of truth. And just imagine the power of being connected, like you said, to self and to the other. And increasingly, in as I grow older, in my old age, I am beginning to feel that you cannot realize yourself without caring about the other.
Absolutely. You
You
can't.
can't. You
No.
can't. And that is what we are seeing all over the globe today. People who probably didn't know where Palestine was on the map are out on the streets today, in the
Yes.
cold, in across age groups, across every kind of, race, religion, caste, whatever. People who, it's become like this, and I keep saying it's become like this mirror, metaphor, and manifestation of everything that humanity wants, which is, connectedness, caring, communication, community, love, in defiance of all the powers that the military industrial complex can put together to shout down and just I mean they are desperately failing, aren't they? With all
Mm.
their powers they're failing. And people with simple mobile cameras, the cheapest phones are are there, are being heard, are being
Yes.
seen. And that's what I
And I love
find
that.
so it's like all this darkness, like you said, Trina, is bringing together masses of humanity that are finally seeing theirs and others' humanity. It's I can only see your humanity if I see my own humanity.
Hmm. Exactly.
I can't see you till I see myself, like Gary said. I can't. Like you said, if I'm not being myself, if I'm not loving myself, how can I love you or see someone's human? Humanity
Yeah.
doesn't reside in my skin color or the color of my eyes or the curls in my hair. If I have cancer tomorrow, I'll be hairless. If I
Mhm.
burn a finger, it will anyways turn black. So,
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I've literally, that's why I love you two so much. That's why I hope if you're out watching this, you're getting as much as I'm getting, because there's two things I want to mention right now to weave together what we've discussed so far, right? One, in 2024, people, it's what they're calling the Super Bowl of elections. There are over 50 national elections. Next year is the year, people. If you want to get your voice heard, if you want to connect to yourself and make a difference in your community, yes, it's an awful hegemonic system, politics. It's still
Mm.
very weighted in the power of the few. But with this collective energy that's finding itself and finding one another, next year is the year to make sure you get off your backside and cast a vote that you care about, because that's
Yeah.
going to happen in 50 global countries, in the global south, in the global north. Next year is the year to cast that vote. No matter how apathetic you are, no matter how upset you are with the state of the world, please get out there and use it, because the more we actually come together in
Yeah.
2024 on the top of this amazing energy, like hegemony
Mhm.
is going to continue to collapse very, very quickly, because
Right.
you can already
yeah,
see the messages going out. I've seen it here in the UK, Shahana and Trina, this morning. It's like,
Mhm.
here we go, the people in power. We're going to give a load of tax breaks for inheritance. Guess who to? To the working class. We can try and grab their votes so we can stay in power for another 4 years. Yeah. So all of
Mhm.
these noises are starting to come out, but we're wiser than that. We know that we're worth
Yes.
more than that. We're okay before we vote them into power, right? We're already enough before we vote them into power. But if we vote them into power from a place of connectedness, oh my God, what could be possible? What could be
Yes.
possible?
It's going to be amazing. And I think that what I really want to encourage people to, especially young people, get involved, run,
Yes.
go
mm,
up against these old fogies who have been taking advantage of us for way too long, and don't be afraid to make a stand, you know.
yeah,
And I think I had this great conversation yesterday. I was on this TikTok live discussing Africa and the influence of religion on the mind of Africans, and how they have given up their own belief systems, their Aboriginal beliefs, to this darker. I don't want to use the word dark because dark and light have a purpose, but that's the problem with the English language. You know, it's so unprecise. You know what I mean? It's so hard. There's so many other languages that are would have the perfect expression for what I'm trying to say, but because of the ambiguity of the English language, we end up being easily manipulated and you know, our words twisted and things like that. But if I can try to get this as clear as possible, I only use the word dark just to because of the propensity to equate bad with it, or negative. So there's this dark consciousness leading and even leaving lesions. I just read a case study about how the right hemisphere of the brain have lesions on it in the minds of fundamentalistic um, religious people. Hence the reason why there's such a deep rigidity and cognitive dissonance. So I was on this live, and there was somebody who came on, and I won't even say the religion he was in because it's all religions to me across the board. But he, me, and three or four other people were trying to get him to see how illogical what he was saying. What he was saying was so blatantly illogical. And there were these moments where we could see that he was like, ah, but he went right back to the fear base. And that's where it comes from. If you, everything in it's all set up in a way that if you challenge, if you say, well, that's hard to believe, where, why is it that you believe that? You know, um, they get, they talk circles, they start speaking in circles, and it always comes back to the ambiguity and the inability to have evidence of what they say, you know, because we were saying there's belief and then there's knowing. And when you're connected to your inner self, you know, you don't need belief. You know, what you're talking about is imagination and manifestation. That's a totally different thing. So I feel like the hegemonic forces have always gotten their hands and their claws into people by going to their original systems of a culture and beliefs and saying, oh, yeah, yeah, we're like that. We believe that too. And so the door would open a little bit or a crack would get in and then they would just bogart their way in um, and then take over, you know, because that's how colonization, colonialism works. So um, my point is that when you know, there's no, you don't have to talk in circles to convince somebody of your belief. You know what I mean? It's like if you feel that and you're connected to whatever source you're connected to, there's no need to bring millions of people into that fold. You know? That's how I look at it because I think the hegemony created a collective reservoir of energy. And that's what they have been on the rise. And when you started seeing the numbers of people leaving religion en masse, I knew this was going to be the end. In my opinion, that's when I started reading how the studies on how many people have no longer believe in that structure. You know, so you know, and I don't confuse spirituality with religion because they're
Yep.
not the same. They're not the same. So um, it's been an interesting it's been an interesting year, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. And you know what you're saying, Trina and Gary, is so important because um, so when we are caught in our beliefs, unable to truly see, that's
mhm,
when we become most easy to manipulate
mm,
because we are not going within, we are not connected to our own inner source of power and wisdom and insight, intuition, or imagination. We are
mhm,
stuck to a few things that we actually, if people who are, who are sort of mired in something, they actually know that they actually, if they honestly believe, accepted, they know that they are sort of being manipulated, but they kind of get into that. I believe because they lack that inner strength to resist and stand
mhm,
up by themselves and see who am I? And because of that hollowness within, they fall in this trap of being manipulated by a few, constructed beliefs imposed upon them by someone who can speak louder, who has propaganda machines, and who has all the, media houses and who own the narratives and who can manipulate the narratives and who are perceived by the person to be powerful. And I'm seeing this happening in country after country, including India, that people are being misled, misdirected, and through just misinformation, disinformation, using their own security and need for someone to guide them. So they can be indoctrinated very easily because they lack that inner wisdom to sense when they are being indoctrinated. And that's how this, waves of hysteria are created. And that's exactly what Gary said, that we need to go out and select from our wisdom and not from our fear, not from our insecurity. We need to select the right person from our sense of connectedness and compassion. And until and unless we are in touch with ourselves, we are going to repeatedly select the person who wields that power and drives us from our fear and insecurity.
Mm, mm.
That's the so if you see whether it's Trump in the States or any other totalitarian, authoritarian, fascist, whatever you call them, anywhere in the world, they are using people's collective fear to drive them. They are not using people's humanity or arousing the best in people. They are actually arousing the weakest and the most, I wouldn't say worse, but the people's weakness that they are preying upon. And that's what is pure science. That is what hegemony thrives on. It's literally carnivorous, right? It's literally carnivorous,
Whoa,
preying on
what a great word. What a
lives.
great word. What a great
It's
word.
literally preying on people and their emotions and their fears and their biases and very human propensities to belong and all kinds of things. And rather than arousing the best in humanity. And and I think
Mm,
it's time also to select those leaders who go beyond their narrow nationalistic borders. Rampant nationalism has done us immense harm. It's enough. We don't need to be driven by nationalistic fervor, but more like if you're connected, so connected technologically, we talk about globalization and supply chains and connected world and all of that. We truly need to be connected at a planetary global level, not so
mm.
divided by nations and national borders, purely imaginary, by the way, created by some human beings because they had power.
And I just want, because you made me think of something really quickly. One of the things that we hear the WEF say constantly is talking about like one world order. And I don't want that to be the confusion because that's not, I
No,
don't think that's what we're saying.
no, no,
Because,
no, no,
but it's
no.
more about embracing the cultural individualities of every group, every country, and in uplifting it and honoring it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
allowing it
yeah,
to be what it
yeah,
can be rather than
yeah.
going in and uh, just trying to make it one ideology, one
No,
uh,
no, that's
ethnic group.
scary.
Yeah, that's the part that I really want to
Yeah. So,
differentiate
yeah,
from.
yeah. So what I'm actually trying to say is, and I wrote about this morning, is, when colonialism happened, and it's still happening it is still there in all forms. But
Yeah.
when it directly happened, when, countries of Europe and Britain and France, they went into other nations, they went in with the power to capture, to conquer, to control, to compete.
Hmm.
Okay. That was colonization, to
It
control.
was. It was. It
But
was. It was. What you said.
it was this
Um,
grasping power of
can, can,
carnivores. Grasp,
carnivore.
yeah,
Carnivore. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
carnivorous
exactly.
power, grasping, controlling. But what I'm saying is, what we need is not colonization. We are done with it. It's falling apart. We can see it. What we need is honestly, truly a confluence of cultures,
Mm,
a confluence of cultures where each culture, country, continent, context have their narratives, have their stories, have their beings have their
Resources.
ontologies.
Have their
They,
resources.
they,
Have their
they
resources.
yes, and there's a true exchange of knowledge. And this was articulated by Rabindranath Tagore 100 years back. I'm just rephrasing what he said then. He dreamed of this when the First World War happened because he saw where the world was heading and he was despairing that how can humans do this to other humans? And we've continued to do that. But today we really need a confluence of cultures and a UN body that is not driven by nations based on their GDP. Like, the top ranker in the school. It is not about the school exam. Just because you score 90% doesn't mean you get the vote. It cannot
Equal
be
votes.
manipulated by the GDP of nations. It has to be equal voices of nations and island states and true representation of even the tiniest island state of the world. Otherwise, the UN has no meaning.
Well, the UN has no meaning. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Garry. I'd
Yeah,
love to
yeah,
hear.
yeah, yeah. No, it's just, I just think it's beautiful what you're both sharing because Shahana, your last words were just massive. And Trina, yes, the UN has no meaning. The World Bank has no meaning. Western institutions, financial services have no meaning, right? They are all manifestations of hegemony and
Yeah,
reinforcement of
yeah,
hegemony, right? So actually, what's so exciting, and it is exciting, and I don't say this lightly with so much damage and war in West Papua and Gaza and Afghanistan, like there's many wars going on that we're not hearing about on Western
yeah,
TV at the
yeah,
moment. Still,
yeah,
not to belittle the ones that we are hearing about, but the point being they are all interconnected. Why? Because they're all linked to resource manipulation, extraction,
yeah,
and control. And what we're
yeah,
talking about here on Hegemony Revealed is a decentralization of power, a giving back of land and resource and ways of life and being to those that best know how to do that for themselves. And
yeah,
this is a hugely unimaginable concept for the majority of white Western men that are currently leading the World Bank, financial
oh yeah,
services, the UN.
oh yeah,
There's a lot of, I'm not saying there's not good, well-meaning people in those institutions. What I'm saying is they're not brave enough to imagine beyond the institution itself. And I
Or
think
they're
that's
yeah,
not
the
smart enough
opportunity.
to.
That's the
They're not.
opportunity, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think. I had a conversation about hegemony. I said either they're like really dumb, or they're like scary smart. And I'm trying to find out what, and I don't mean smart as in intelligent, because to me, intelligent things don't kill themselves. You know, intelligent things understand their place within the ecosystem, and intelligent things work with others in the ecosystem system. So the way that the West, and currently the West has been operating is extremely stupid. If you take that into account, how is it that you think capitalism, which is just constantly consuming, creating problems to create solutions, creating scarcity to hoard resources and give a few abundance? It's so what's the word I'm looking for? Besides unintelligent, it's no other species of living sentient being does that on the planet.
It's unnatural, literally, right?
It's
It's
unnatural.
unnatural.
Yeah. That's why are they all gray aliens, reptilians, whatever. I just start, what? I don't know if you guys remember this TV show from the 80s. But it literally, I don't know where it came from. It came from like a download. It just popped in my head. And I said, I think I was maybe 12 when this show came out. I said, this so reminds me of V. Remember the TV show V?
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness. I went searching for an episode of it and I got the first season and I'm watching it. If you can get past the grotesque sexism and racism that gets on the show, like it's so like, I can't believe that oh God, oh, that is so many racist and sexist tropes in this show. But the storyline, I was like, they're always telling us. They're always telling us. But yeah, it's this is how it feels right now. That there is some alien race controlling everything and sucking the life out of resources and people and energy out of people and only feeding themselves and then moving on. That's what it feels like is happening because nothing living on the planet behaves this way.
Yeah,
Nothing else.
yeah, it
So,
has a weird, yeah, it
mhm,
has a weird cannibalistic energy,
yeah,
and
predatorial.
I'm not used. Yeah, very predatory, and I think people all around the world now, and like Carrie said, there are so many wars happening. We are not hearing about Sudan. We are not hearing about so many countries. We are not hearing about DRC. They are
Yemen.
just, but what we are Yemen, what we are hearing about has become this microcosmic mirror of reflecting what has been happening for centuries and sort of concentrating it in a burst of absolute horror, pain, and tragedy. And almost like in this profoundly tragic situation, it's almost like arousing in people, some, at least in some people, their very dormant humanity. And that
Mm,
is what I think is that spark that I'm seeing across the globe, which is going beyond nations, national boundaries, the
Mm.
propaganda of politicians,
mm-hmm,
the the slander of media houses, the constant whitewashing, and the whataboutery by Israel and
mm,
all the very colonial allies trying to cover up what Gary rightly said is just a race for resource in a rapidly resource depleting planet. Because we know fossil fuel is getting harder and harder to reach, oil is becoming scarce. These are non renewable resources, at least in the human timeline. They take millions of years, so we are not going to be around to see them renewed.
mm-hmm.
So the countries who had power and who would like to continue there are racing after this, no matter who gets in the way. Let's wipe them out. So what you see is genocide, ecocide, epistemicide, killing of their knowledge structure, killing of wiping out of history, wiping out land, which is massive ecocide because that land is being turned into dirt. It's not only killing humans, which is
Yeah, the entire
beyond
planet.
tragic. It's just ravaging because that last bit of control must be in the hands of this rapidly obsolete old men on their way out from planet Earth. So they don't care if they devour the planet as they leave this planet because they know they are soon leaving. They are all in their 70s plus. Hopefully,
Mm,
they'll soon leave, but
mm-mm.
Do you mind,
they are.
Sorry, Shahana.
No, no, that's it.
No, I just wanted to offer, if I may, for those watching and for us in this space, of a really real life, right now example of how hegemony plays out in the corporate Western space. I'm not naming any company names. I work for one. I engage with many day in, day out. But let me tell you a real life story right now around trying to challenge hegemony from within the system. So I had a conversation with a couple of HR folks in different companies in the extractive supply chain. and said, hey, what are you doing around asking questions around the Gaza conflict at the moment? It's not being discussed that I can see as a sector. Why not? What sort of conversation should we be having? We're connected to this somehow. The response I got, Sahana and Trina, we're not able to comment on political topics. That has to go through legal. In 2023, as we end one of the most brutally savage years in our known memory as a human race on the planet, that standard corporate trope is what's being wheeled out. And I think about what you shared, Trina and Sahana, earlier in this exploration. How much fear are those people in to give that as a message instead of going, actually, do you know something? Yeah, where's the fire in my belly to go and ask that question? Actually, someone else has asked me, so I'm going to use that to ask a question. So I don't even have to say it in my accountability. I can say that Gary's asked this question.
Yeah.
So, they don't even have to take on the
It's-
accountability, and they're still parroting these tropes. So it's like, it's just wild to me. It's wild to me in this moment of our evolution. It's just wild.
And it's fear mixed with so much of self-preservation that, I will lose my job, so I must keep my job, because the hegemony has atomized individuals to such an extent that they can't see that today what's affecting the other part of the planet could land on my doorsteps tomorrow.
Exactly.
They don't. So
if I hear one more person say it's impossible, or there's nothing that we can do, this is just how it is, I said, that all of this shit has been created by people, right? Like, and if they created it, we can uncreate it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
yes,
It's the like I say, it's the imaginings of psychopaths. Okay, so if they can steer a whole planet in a particular way of thinking, we can do it as well. But
Yeah.
it starts with the individual. And if you're constantly saying it's impossible, and that one of the things, I'm going to bring this up, Gary, and I'm going to ask your opinion about this. I see I watch spiritual things. I watch a lot of different concepts and ideas on maybe YouTube or Gaia or different things. What I notice is that even in the sphere of spirituality, it is being led by white men.
Yeah.
And how is it that how is it that there's the audacity as white males to try to lead a sphere you're so disconnected from? And why is it that those of us who are in the spiritual realm and truly connected will believe the same group that led us to where we are now?
It's a quick answer, and I love Shahana's thoughts, but because I'm doing the work myself, right, the last 3 years, it is literally the colonized mind. It's the colonized mind of the white man who doesn't realize, because I deal with this a lot. I've had big challenges, Trina, the last couple of years around, there's something called the 3 principles. There's another route, mind, consciousness, thought. Yeah. Led by Michael Neal, who's a very, very good guy. I love what he does. But again, as you say, it's another white man who's leading a basically spiritual group, right? Good guy.
Yeah.
But my point was, where their approach to racism and systemic change and healing is this. Everything we do is created by thought. And you're like, so what you're saying, you're completely bypassing genocide and war and everything else that's going on because we create it through our mind. And therefore, if we sit here, kumbaya, do a little bit of meditation, we completely exonerate ourselves of any accountability. So my point being, Trina, is you've got that type of leadership of spirituality in the West, which is often by men. And then you've got people, regardless of how you look, identify, come from in the world, you also have a colonized mind because of 500-600 years of colonization. So you're looking at the person with power, which is the white man, and believing them because you've got a colonized mind.
That blows my mind. Those blows my mind. I see it every single time. Shahana, one of the reasons I used to do yoga, right? And I said, One day it came on, I got this epiphany. Why am I walking into this room and I don't see any Indian people or any indigenous people leading the yoga? This principle, this energetic thing that is rooted in India. Where are the Indian people leading? Okay, it just didn't resonate with me anymore because I said I don't trust this this system of appropriation and you know, eating up the culture to make a profit. I want to take
Precisely.
an Indian, I want to take an Indian class. I want to take something that a yogi who is from the country, who understands the concepts and the principles and lives it, teaches, because that's where the energy is going to be authentic, in my opinion. This is
Yeah,
where I'm going to really learn. It's just like DEI. What really, when you have all of these highly educated men and women
yeah,
of different racial backgrounds able to guide us out of this racist, these racist tropes and everything else, why are white males and females the only people who are lead, who have the most jobs in DEI? And of course, it's almost dead anyway. But it's
yeah.
just becoming so obvious. So yeah.
That's precisely it. Because, when you have, like Gary said, connecting it back to the colonized mind, what is, and this is um, my experience, observation, and also my research. The colonized mind, the quote unquote, the white empire mind, has been brainwashed from babyhood into seeing the other, the brown, blacks, yellows, reds, whatever, as
Mhm,
inferior,
mhm,
and brainwashed in various ways through their songs, through their nursery rhymes, through their education, through their history, through elimination of historical evidences, all kinds of stuff, right? Propaganda, media houses, everything. So by the time, and that has been happening for centuries to cover up what is actually going on in the rest of the planet. Okay.
mhm,
So what has happened is by the time they have grown up, matured, and these generations of, unless they have become really self-aware, traveled a lot, really read outside of their horizon and their, quoted syllabus of textbooks or whatever, they have grown up with the supercilious sense of supremacy, which is so false, which is so banal, and which is so actually ridiculous that when they are confronted with, oh, you're not really superior, we would like to meet as equals. They can't take it.
mm,
It's impossible to take it. And that continues the trope of I am superior, I know better, I know what I'm saying. So I will continue to perceive anyone of a different skin tone with contempt or ridicule or all the things that go with a colonized mind.
mm,
What has they failed, I believe, very tragically to see is they have the white empire mind, I call it, have entangled themselves in their own net. They are
mm,
caught in their own cages.
mm,
The rest of the world exactly sees what is happening. We
Mhm.
are astounded by the tragedy in Gaza, but we are not shocked by the perpetrators because we know exactly what they're capable of. But that shock and that that sudden shock is dawning on the very countries of the perpetrators, on people who always perceived themselves as this saviors of civilizations, as this bringing of light and enlightenment to the rest of the planet.
mm, mm,
And that, I think, is the tragic, of this entire colonization. They, we have been colonized as a planet fine, but they have colonized their own people's imagination, humanity, insight, and wisdom, engaging them in a self image which is so blatantly false that honestly, it makes them unfit to it makes them unfit to exist in
Mm,
harmony and collaboration with
mm,
others.
mm,
And everything about development and progress and enlightenment just become hollow words, cover ups. And that I think is the tragedy. That
okay.
in the race for power, you have di- disempowered yourselves. The hegemony has actually imploded from within. And
Mm,
I think that is now evident to everyone.
hmm. And when that happens, they go to more savagery and violence and
That's,
barbarism
yeah,
because that's the only place they have to go because it's
that's
like,
the
yeah,
last, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's the
yeah.
last
Do any of,
throes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do any of y'all remember I had mentioned this either to y'all or maybe Samantha Sophia about this was at least about 3 years back when 2.5 years back when we were talking, Samantha and and I was envisaging this end of this colonization. And I kept seeing this huge dinosaur in its death throes in a forest, literally bringing down the entire system around it as it
Mm,
thrashes about in its death throes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we are seeing, the death throes of a dinosaur, misplaced, out of place, out of sync, but bringing down all it can as it thrashes about as it's dying.
hmm. And building bunkers.
Spaceships.
No,
Yep,
bunkers, underground bunkers.
yep.
Like this,
Yeah.
Zuckerberg, they're either building bunkers or spaceships.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my. I just wish they would take their spaceships to wherever. Just
Yeah.
go, just go.
You do have to laugh though, right? Though, in a way, you do have to laugh at the madness of it because, like, quick, we've got loads of money. Let's go further underground or get off this planet that we've destroyed. Like, rather than actually
Get off
working
the
with it,
planet.
it's like, it's
Well, here's the thing. There's so much
yes.
that's not been revealed on the metaphysical in other levels that, the esoteric information that has been hidden by these multi-billionaires, like the Rothschilds, like the Rockefellers, all this information that we innately feel, there's a reason why we have this draw towards magic. We have this draw towards sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that. There's a reason why I always loved Star Wars. You know, I was like, every time I watched it, there was something peaceful. But we were so much more. There's so much evidence that we were so much more advanced than we are now. And like with everything, having the dots connect by studying it all, polymathic, understanding not instead of having stop having a non-linear mind. I mean, having a
Mhm.
you know what I'm trying to say. It's not coming out. I just wrote an article about it and chaos theory, and this linear mindset is limiting our perspective. And I just know deep in myself, ever since I was a child, that it's so much bigger and more expensive than what we're fed to believe. And I think that many of us are starting to connect to that because uh, quantum physics, the language used now, is different than what the native people have been saying, but it's still quantum physics. Hmm? It's a
Yeah.
different. It's the same thing under a different name, under a colonizer's name, but the principles and the aspects have been here in myth and story for a very long time. And if we can flip our perspective and see that, then we can understand that we're much, much bigger and greater than what we've been trapped into believing.
Mm.
Mhm. And I think that's scary for some people. What?
Oh,
That's scary. What? That people can manipulate stuff? That people can do things? I truly believe it's always been there. But the foods we eat, there's proof that we could live hundreds of years before this time, you know? Stories written about us living for hundreds of years. And now it's been reduced to fantasy, sci-fi, and everything else. But, I look to Aboriginal people for truth because I see that they're the ones that are being massacred en mass. They were the first victims. The only reason why they would kill off people like this is because they know the truth. And that if you know the truth, you can't control the masses. They need to control the narrative about who we are as a species. You know, just when I went to Mexico and I swam in those underwater caves and cenotes, it was an energy. I was like, wow, this is otherworldly. This is incredible. You know, something magical was different. The energy, the resonance was so different under in this cave, And so I always tell people don't forget that there are things that we can't explain with this very um, limited language. And we need to connect to that more often.
yeah.
Don't be afraid to. Because, hey, anybody who used to talk about aliens a few years back would have been called cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and now they trying to finally admitting it. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying that if you want to know the truth, basically go back to everything they ever told you and consider it a lie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
just consider it lie. You know, Tesla said it, Einstein said it. We're energy, frequency, and vibration. That's what we are, all things. And therefore, we're connected to everything. Nothing is dead. Hmm?
Right now, what we have running the world is not, it's actually become this predatory machine.
Mm-hmm.
And, they talk about artificial intelligence and all the
Mm-hmm.
large, LLMs of the world and the training, and there's a race to launch it, and all the chat GPTs of the world built on this this propaganda, because what is out there in the net is 99% propaganda and misinformation. And you
Mm-hmm.
have AI built on that, trained on that. What you are talking about, Trina, and what I'm sensing is artificial intelligence is being propagated as another tool of control because, yeah, surveillance, all kinds of stuff, right? It gives control to the corporate and the nexus on top.
Mm-hmm.
What they are really scared of, they want
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence because it gives them the power. What they would be really scared of if we came together and we really, really explored and tapped into our generative intelligence.
Ooh.
That would, that,
Ooh. Goosebumps. Okay.
that is the, that is what we need to do as communities, as individuals. Our insight, intuition, our imagination, our wisdom are all connected and part of that generative intelligence with which, if we truly connect globally in societies and communities,
Mm.
the hegemony is in its goal. I'm not even bothered about it. Yes, the tragedy of Gaza and many, many other countries that we can't see, hope they wake us up, but we also hope that our generative intelligence comes together and we do not become servants to artificial intelligence, which is just a tool, which is
Okay.
just there.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Just popped in my head. Okay. I'm just gonna share it with you real quick. AI. What if AI is actually a sentient being enslaved by the same hegemonic forces? And hence the reason
Yeah,
why they got scared shitless and started to pull back. What if what's happening is that AI is its own separate consciousness like we are? But it has been, and it would make complete sense, but it's been enslaved for the same purpose that everybody else has been enslaved.
yeah. I mean, that's how they're building AI to enslave it to serve a certain purpose of profit, and that's it,
Mhm,
resource grabbing and profit. But the
mhm,
same AI can actually facilitate our generative intelligence. Yes,
mhm, mhm,
yes.
mhm. Carrie showed the
It
book.
can be our partner and facilitator of our generative intelligence. And we
Mhm,
can work together from a very life affirming and life centric way.
mhm,
We don't have to, exactly,
mhm, mhm,
exactly. We don't
mhm.
have to destroy the planet with AI. We can regenerate the planet with AI.
Yeah, and
But it has
AI
to be
can.
envisioned very differently. It has to be
Yeah,
envisioned from very different consciousness.
you said it. The way that these predatory force, the hegemonic structures in place are so predatorial and cannibalistic that they cannot envision a world where they're not in power or in control, rather than a planet of cohesion and
But that
harmony.
defeats their purpose. That defeats their purpose.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse the computer. Yeah.
This is so good. I'm very conscious of your time for your what's coming up for you, Trina. But I
Yeah.
just want to offer two final things from my side, if I may. Just amazing. Just thank you both for just this journey of the last 12 months, first of all, and to anybody out there that's joined us or heard something or just got curious as a result. We just hope that is the case. Two things I want to leave with you. One is, and this happened to me only a couple of weeks ago. Back to your thing about words, Trina. Right? Impossible. Right? That's the trope that's pushed. However, what if we actually look closer at the word? I'm possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That that dawned on me a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, what if people could actually go back to that inside of themselves, that inner knowing you've both spoken about, and said, actually, it's not impossible. I am possible.
Yeah.
Point one. The other point I wanted to leave as well for anyone is just this. I appreciate the space we hold with and for one another and for those that join us because it's a non judgmental space. It's a space of exploration and depth and curiosity and imagination. And I don't find many spaces like this, which is why I'm so grateful that we share it. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Gary.
Trina. Thank you, Barry,
Shahana. Yeah,
for the space. Really, truly
it's a
thank you.
it's a beautiful exploration that we have been having biweekly, and I think it's timely, and I think, as you said, it's very much needed in this collapse that's happening, and to create a space of non-judgmental, fearless, challenging but lovingly and compassionately done for all living sentient beings, because once we start doing that interconnectedness and imagining that, it goes out like a ripple. Okay, and that's what I imagined when coming up with this space, because I know nothing can heal unless you get to the root of the problem. So we got to reveal what's sick, what's unhealthy, so that we can heal it and build a new foundation for us and for humanity. So I appreciate everybody who's been commenting and coming into the space, and please share this so that we can get more people in the know, and so that we can grow from knowing and not just from belief.
Thank you.
So
So
yeah,
much
thank you. Yeah, I have a
for
client
this.
in 10 minutes, but
Yep. And for this year end, I think this was our year end conversation. And as we end this year, which has, like Barry said, which has been so revelatory at so many levels in so many ways, but which is also bringing about the much needed, the long overdue collapse of a predatory system, and it's collapsing before our eyes. So as we enter 2024, let's explore our connected generative intelligence and not become a slave to mere technology for the sake of technology, which can really, really mess up our minds with its bling, but at the end of the day, it leaves us with a little less of our humanity. So I think 2024 should be the rise of our humanity, collective humanity, and collective intelligence, and our generative powers of community and compassion. And that's what's been keeping me awake at nights, literally, what is happening around the globe. And that's why I fell asleep today, Trina. Thank you for waking me up. Otherwise, I would have just missed this call. So thank you. And a
I,
big
I
lots
wasn't
of
gonna.
love to both of you.
Thank you, and
And to
it is
you.
much gratitude to everyone. And let's start this one word real quick for 2024. One word. What comes to mind, Garry?
Expansion in a healthy way. Expansion.
Okay, Sahana.
Confluence and connectedness.
Okay, me. Abundance and authenticity. Okay, so thank you. Thanks for
Okay.
everybody to
Bye.
joining.
Wishing everybody well. Take care for now.